and we're going to be talking tonight in regards to cognitive function and natural ways to improve cognitive function. Now, to be fair, I'm also live on TikTok, which is over here. So if you see me look over here, that's because I'm either taking questions on TikTok or I'm looking at my notes because sometimes it's very hard to remember every single thing, especially sometimes things like this will take a couple of hours. So buckle up. It could be a long night. But I have some people over on TikTok that's going to help guide this conversation, and hopefully we can make some really good make a really good video in regards to natural ways to improve cognitive health. Actionable steps to improving. Okay, so one of the things we're going to discuss is actionable steps to improve. Absolutely, and we're going to discuss specific herbs first, obviously, because I talk herbs mostly. I talk herbs, so we'll discuss some specific herbs first and different ways that they improve your cognitive function. Um, and we'll let TikTok decide, or we can talk about what are different ways that cause cognitive decline, and then approach it from there. We can start with what causes the problem first, and then go ahead and cover what how to fix it. Let's see if we can start with that. See if we can get everybody to vote over there. I have one person live here. If you vote, it'll be 100% vote on YouTube if you vote right now. So, if you say yes, we should do that. And you left. Then they left. They got bored. YouTube Live, I don't get nearly, see, that's part of the issue over on YouTube. I don't get nearly the audience over there because YouTube doesn't share. YouTube has specifically said they won't share my type of message. You can go back and look at the news releases. They will not share my kind of message. That's why it's really, I bitch about, I complain and moan about it, but you guys are very important in the sharing part of it, because if you don't share it, the message stops with you. Oftentimes you're the last one to see one of my videos. If you've seen it on the thing, even if you, especially if you just scroll through, you watch half of it and scroll away, they're not going to share it with anybody else either. Yeah, they just don't do it. I mean, think about it. If you look at TikTok, their biggest advertisers are big pharma, right? Those are the guys that are paying them the most money. YouTube, same thing. So over here on YouTube, the ones here on YouTube, big pharma is the ones that pay the most money. So they have absolutely zero intention, zero reason, zero desire to want to spread my message, because my message goes directly against their biggest advertisers. Yep, I got one. Man-made. Oh no, I said it. I said earlier we're going to discuss how we were going to start the cognitive approach, and everybody over on TikTok said that we should probably start it with what causes different types of causes that cause cognitive decline, and oftentimes it's not pleasant. It's not a good topic because people don't like to hear it. Oftentimes, a lot of these things can be fixable if you take the proper steps naturally. And there's foods you can eat, specific steps you can take with your body physically, and different herbs you can take, and different supplements that you can do and take that help with this cognitive decline issue that people are having. Um, I can tell you that oftentimes it's led to a lifetime. People who end up developing like Alzheimer's and um, dementia, Parkinson's, neuralgia. All of these conditions are all fairly closely related, and they're all typically caused by the same types of things. So I mean, there's dozens of other types of neurological conditions, um, but the approaches are very similar on how you can do it. Now part of the issue is when you have issues with cognitive decline, it's gradual. Most people don't realize it's happening. It's kind of like glaucoma. When people have glaucoma, what will happen is your optic nerve kind of goes like this, right? And when your eye builds up pressure, imagine your arm going to sleep. Well, there's about 3 million nerves in your eye center that helps you see. And what happens when you have glaucoma and your eyes are like this, that's your nerve center. Um, Nerves will start dying. Like when your arm goes to sleep, that's because the nerves are, you're losing circulation to your nerves, and you're getting that reaction where you can't feel anything. Well, you do that over time, you'll actually kill the nerves off. And so it's very similar with cognitive issues too. When you get certain buildups of types of toxins in your brain, it does the same type of thing. I mean, there's no nerves in your brain, but it does the same types of thing. You have your synapses and how everything connects, and you get zinc buildups and things like that will prevent that from happening on a molecular level. So what I'm doing for everybody, just so anybody who's just joining, I'm live on TikTok as well, and they're going to kind of help guide the topic in the conversation. I've been live on there for about a half an hour, so we can kind of figure out how we were going to do it live here on YouTube. Now, the good thing about being live on YouTube is once I'm done with this live, it'll at a later time. What YouTube will do is they'll um, process it, which means they're going to go through and make sure I didn't say anything that violates any of their blah blah blahs, and then they'll go ahead and post it, and you'll be able to see it in my playlist under lives, and then you can go back and refer to it at any time. So I've told the people that are on TikTok that if they want to look at it at a later time, or if they lose the live throughout the night, they'll be better able to come over here to YouTube and they can watch it. But they're also going to be asking the questions. I don't really get a lot of live people that on live on YouTube. So if you do have any questions while I'm here, feel free to ask it, and I'll be able to go. But I'm going to try to stay on topic, right? So we're not going to talk about anything that's not cognitive related. So if it's not related to brain health, I'm probably not going to cover it. Excuse me. Hey, Angie. All right, so let's talk about different things that lead to cognitive decline. Well, number one, age, right? Eventually your body just starts deteriorating in parts, and things just don't necessarily work as well, especially if you haven't had, towards the end of your life, if you don't do, say, a lot of mental activity, you will lose mental clarity. So people that are getting, hey Angie, people that are getting, or you notice a decline in, oftentimes they're not really doing much of anything with their minds in order to be able to improve function. So in some cases, it can be just as simple as it's like use it or lose it. So, when you were in high school, when you did a lot of math, upper higher math, you probably don't remember most of it, right? And you'd be hard pressed, or you'd have to do a lot of freshening up in order to be able to go back and do some of that higher math. Well, it's the same thing with everything in your brain. And the more you stop using it, the less it's going to be available to you when you do use it, right? Your body's kind of like that. It's a machine like that. So you kind of need to keep your brain lubed up. That's just one step that you can take. So inactivity of your brain, you get people that get the TikTok brain and stuff like that, where they have absolutely no attention span, and that's terrible, right? Because then you will have that mental decline over time, and it's shown. I mean, they're showing it in studies. People that can't pay attention have real issues with all sorts of things, memory and being able to function and things like this. Just basic common sense they lose. So one thing that I found that you can do, and there are some people that can, if you don't really want to get active and you don't want to be physical, in order to combat that would be to do little things to keep your mind going. Now, like the Nintendo DS came out with a game years ago called Brain Age, and I'm sure they have similar games and activities like that on apps on your phone, apps on your computer, things like Mahjong, uh, Free Cell, Solitaire. Even though they're kind of mindless, if you don't use your brain, right, it's not going to function. Crossword puzzles are also another good one. Any type of word puzzles that you get, like the variety word puzzles on the books, are really good to have. Because if as long as you continue to use your brain, you'll force more blood flow, more oxygen, more activity towards your brain because you're using it, right? Because if you don't use it, your body isn't really gonna send anything your way, isn't gonna send any energy that way because you're not using it anyway. You don't need it. Instead it's gonna focus on your heart, your kidneys, and your lungs, and all these other processes that it goes through, rejuvenating your musculature, replenishing your skin, all this stuff. It's gonna put more energy into that, especially if you're not using your brain. We have another comment. I don't see the comment. Any idea how to help with narcolepsy? Well, we can talk about that. I mean, I can't recommend anything, obviously, but I think a lot of that has to do with one of the question was, is there anything about narcolepsy? And we'll get into that. Um, I think I'm not a doctor, but I can read. All right. Yep, we'll talk about that. We'll include it. That is part of cognitive function. Okay, so we've determined that if you don't use your brain over time, your brain is going to stop functioning at its prime because it just can't. And of course, if you don't feed your brain, that won't help either. So one of the other things that's very important when you're discussing brain function is how you feed it. And to be fair, the types of foods that we have available to us nowadays is just not very helpful for um, not very helpful for improved cognitive health because like especially these highly processed foods our bodies really can't process. I mean, even though the food itself is processed, we can't process it. Our bodies have a really difficult time processing it and getting the proper types of nourishment and the proper types of nutrients out of processed foods. And one of the most important, and realistically speaking, nobody, I can't say nobody, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily like to eat healthy. They just don't want to eat healthy food. They don't want to they don't want to eat raw vegetables or or even vegetables, and they won't eat fruits, and they don't, and they we're going to talk about another diet in regards to that, but that's different. But they don't eat a balanced, healthy diet, right? They just eat junk food, so they'll live off of candy and cookies, and they'll eat food here and there. They'll make macaroni and cheese, and all these things that are still highly processed, which isn't necessarily going to help with the functioning, because those types of things do build up. They have what's called oxidants in them, and those do build up in your brain. They not only build up like in your blood vessels and stuff, but they will clog other parts of your brain. They've shown to have like neurological impact when you eat these types of foods, and we know this. Like, we know it's a thing. Everybody approves it. Well, we don't approve it, but people approve it, and so they're fed to us, and people eat it thinking that it's good and healthy because the label says so. But um but then they end up with all these different chronic illnesses, with cognitive decline being one of those. Oh, thank you. What do we feed our brain? So there's different types of food that you can feed your brain, and that was one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Um, you kind of want to stay away from sugary foods, right? So you want to stay away from processed sugars. You want to stay away from high fructose corn syrup. Try to stay away from pop and beer and any type of. I mean, you really want to avoid alcohol too, because alcohol does affect you on a neurological level. If you look at the symptoms of alcohol poisoning or just somebody being drunk, and then you go and you look at the symptoms, and it's really easy to do. Symptoms of an insect that's been sprayed with pyrethrins, or symptoms of an insect that's been sprayed with certain kinds of pesticides, and you'll see that the symptoms that the ants or the insects suffer are exactly the same as the symptoms you would suffer if you drank too much alcohol. It's literally a poison in your brain, and it does affect you on a neurological level. So that's one of the relevant factors. Now, I understand you get people, oh, I've been drinking all my life, blah blah blah. Well, I understand that, but inevitably it's going to catch up with you because biologically, and to be fair, your body's going to metabolize alcohol a little bit differently than everybody else's, because every body, every space body is different, and everybody's going to react differently to different types of stimulus. I'm not even sure what that is, Sarah. So the types of foods you want to try to stick with, like raw vegetables. Raw vegetables isn't necessarily a bad thing. Now, I've heard there have been studies, well, not very a lot of studies, but and again, every body is different, so you can't specifically say that one specific diet is going to help any. So you can't really say that one's going to work any better um, than any other, because each body is going to react differently to whichever diet they go on. Now, some people seem to do really well um, for example, some people may do really well by doing a carnivore diet, right? But not it. The carnivore diet isn't for everybody, and you'll have some people say, "Oh yes, it's for everybody," but it really isn't. All of our genetics is slightly different, And all of, and that being said, we are going to react differently to different types of things. So now, personally, I don't think that the vegan diet's good for anybody. I don't care who you are. I think it's an awful diet. I think it's probably the worst diet for your body. And I let the haters come out and say whatever they want to say. I'm sorry. That just scientifically speaking, it just hasn't proven to be the best option for really anybody. Um, I mean, even vegetarians like deer will eat meat. So squirrels, it's not necessarily the best option, right? And that's just my own opinion. Ginkgo's good for a lot of stuff. We're going to be talking about that here in a minute. But right now we're talking about some other things first. We're going to try to stay on topic. Um, so when you go to feed your diet, you want to try to get foods that are going to improve like overall function of your body. One of my favorite herbs to take in order to improve like blood flow and to get more oxygen and remove more of the oxides from the body is beetroot. And some people go, well, I hate beets. Well, you hate taking medicine too, so whatever, eat it anyway. And if you don't want to eat them raw, which would be the best option, ferment them. And then you could do pickled beets, and then you could, those would be good for you too. If you can't do that, and you just can't suck it up long enough to get yourself better, then take some capsules or an extract of beetroot. So that way you're still getting the benefits of the beetroot. I hear so many people that complain about the taste of this or the taste of that. And I'll be the first one to tell you most of this stuff tastes like crap. It's awful. Most herbal medicine tastes awful. It really does. But you're not taking it to taste good, right? You're not eating it as cuisine. It's to make you better. So, and I'm kind of a philosophy that if medicine tasted good, everybody would want to be sick all the time, so they could have some of that tasty medicine. And you make it taste bad. There have been times that I've avoided taking it just because it tastes so bad, but I got better, right? I mean, the symptoms went away because I just didn't want to take it. And so it's also a mind thing too. So there we go with that. You want to eat, fruits. If you're going to eat canned food, make sure you're eating the juice too, right? So if you get like canned beans or canned corn or whatever, don't leave the juice behind. That's where all your nutrients are, right? So let's say you're doing um, green beans, right? So you strain your green beans or whatever, um, and then you're doing mashed potatoes with the meal. You use your juice from the green beans as your water slash milk or your water for your mashed potatoes because then at least you're getting the nutrients from the green beans. You're just getting it in a different part of your meal. These are the types of little tricks that you can use that can actually improve what you're eating overall. Typically speaking, canned food isn't the best for you, right? But it's better than nothing, and it's better than highly processed foods. Typically speaking, they just have like, some sort of preservatives. So I'm not even sure exactly which ones they're using at this point. But if you're gonna, you eat the vegetable, most of the nutrients is already in the juice. So you're getting the vegetables, so you're getting all that fiber, which is good. You're getting some prebiotics, but you're not necessarily getting the nutrients from it. Fresh beets, ginkgo. We're going to talk about ginkgo for sure. So these are the types of things that we have to consider when we're approaching our diet. So if you steam your vegetables, the same thing. The water that's at the bottom of the steam, if you notice it's colored, well, guess what that is? That's your phenolic compounds that have fallen out of the vegetables, and they're in your steam water now. So that's why I don't like when I'm steaming my water, I don't use faucet water because then if you think about it logically, if you don't unless you don't filter your water, I filter my water, but when I rinse my rice before I make it, um, when I go to make my noodles, when I do any of that stuff, I use my filtered water, not faucet water, because if you're using your faucet water, the first thing that boils off is the chlorine. So your chlorine goes up, and it's the first thing it hits is your vegetables. So you get chlorinated vegetables, and then all the goodies from the vegetables drops down in the water where there is no chlorine, and that's the stuff you throw away. Canning is really good. Canning is a really good way to do it. If you can it yourself, it's a lot better, really. But most people don't take the time to do that. So there's that too. So you kind of want to keep a balanced diet. You want to avoid eating the types of foods that little Debbie's, and you want to avoid pops and alcohol. Try to avoid smoking. I mean, if you're going to smoke, you're going to smoke, but at the very least, limit it or cut it back or something because it'll also build up in your body. Now, one of the other things that it's been known, and we already discussed this for you guys that have been watching for a while. One of the other things that'll negatively impact your cognitive health is your posture. Your posture is highly relevant to how your body responds. Now, I'm going to kind of show you in a way, if you are the kind of person that always walks around like this, or like this, or like this, your 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 blood will still flow to your brain, right? But I want you to think about your blood will go up this way and then it comes down, right, to leave. This is the most simplest of terms, okay? So look, I'm not a doctor and I'm not trying to put this in the most technical terms. This is herbs made easy, not trying to complicate anything. So the blood comes in and that's great, and all the good stuff comes in, that's great, but some of the bad stuff that the blood brain barrier doesn't prevent from coming up also gets in. So that's where your zinc and some of your zinc is good for you, right, in moderation. But here's the problem. If you're doing this, your zinc goes in, but it don't go out. It doesn't have anywhere to go, and that'll start having an inadvertent impact on your body. This is where people will start coming up with their Parkinson's disease, and they'll start getting the Alzheimer's and the dementia, because even though the blood flow goes in and it's really great, there's nothing being able to leave the body. However, if you straighten up your posture, you could think of like a hose. If you're slumped, the hose goes like this and it can't leave, and then it'll build up where the junction is, right? However, if you have your posture up, you have your shoulders back, you're allowing all of that blood to flow. Sorry, you're allowing for all that blood to flow where it needs to go when it leaves, when it goes back out. So that's really relevant when it comes to different ways to improve your posture. Is really highly relevant. That's also why sometimes you'll get headaches. You can get headaches by having bad posture. If your head's always down, or if you study a lot, or so if your head is down, not only your head down and you're studying for something, that's a good way to get a headache because your blood can go in, but it can't go out. It doesn't have anywhere to go. That's where the inflammation will start, and then your pressure will start. Sometimes people get migraines and other types of issues like that. So somebody here on YouTube says that she had well water and she does a lot of canning. Canning's really good. I mean, if you can can it yourself, that's really the best way to go about it, to be fair. But if you get the ones in the grocery store, just read your labels. I mean, you see everybody that say, oh, they're tainted with this or tainted with that. Don't buy this product, don't buy that product, don't buy this product because Bill Gates owns it. Well, it doesn't matter who owns it, to be fair, because they're all owned by the big three, four now if you count Gates. So you get people that'll jump on your accounts and they'll start saying that kind of stuff, and they don't really do any good. It doesn't help. And these are people that usually don't make any content of their own, and so they're not showing you an alternative. They're just telling you to not do something. So so whatever personal vendetta they have against Kraft or Gates or whoever it is they're hating in the moment, it doesn't matter. You're buying tainted stuff from everybody. So unless you're making it yourself from ingredients that you've either grown yourself or grown from people and blah blah blah, just use what you have instead of paralyzing yourself and not use anything, right? You use what you have instead of nothing, because otherwise you just paralyze yourself and then you're still stuck taking pharmaceuticals. And what good have you done for anybody? I'm just saying. 30. Somebody said that she canned 35 quarts of grass-fed beef this weekend. That's awesome. That's a lot of beef too. So posture is also relevant in regards to now cognitive decline. Now, here's some other things. You have environmental toxins. So when you smell gasoline, the fumes from gasoline is known to impair cognitive function. Um, Welding, certain types of jobs also can lead to that. So exterminators, people who do welding, because they're constantly surrounded by toxins, right? Their bodies are, I mean, our skins are like sponges. Our lungs, our sinuses, when we breathe in, and so even just like driving down the road, if you're in like clogged and congested areas, when you drive by something and you smell that whatever, well, you're still getting those molecules, right? Those are still toxins that you're ingesting. Um, Aromatherapy works both ways. It's not always good for you. So, all right, power goes out. Hi, everybody. Okay, so just for everybody, real quick, everybody on TikTok who are just joining, I am doing a live on YouTube, and so that way it's going to be usable for everybody later. My YouTube channel is where Science Meets Nature. Um, but this was discussed first on TikTok, so I'm doing the live on TikTok for the people who don't use YouTube, so that way they can get this particular talk. We are talking specifically about cognitive function tonight. So, excuse me. Now, there's different things that you can do when it comes to these types of toxins or the environmental toxins. I talk all the time about detox, and you'll look online in regards to different ways of detoxing your bodies. I have my own method of doing it. I'm a huge fan of not having diarrhea for 3 weeks, right? I'm okay with not doing that. I don't think it's a great idea. I know a lot of people will do that for their detox, or a lot of those programs will say, here you're going to go through this detox program and it's going to colon cleanse and it's going to this and that and blah blah blah. Um, but I don't know. I think that that leads to more problems, and it depends on the ingredients of the detox. So if you get one of those chemical detoxes, you've literally used chemicals to detoxify your body, and then you've spent the last 3 weeks dehydrating yourself on top of that. So I don't know how effective those types of detoxes are. The type of detox that I prefer to use is a detox that makes your body do what your body's supposed to do naturally anyway. So I have done videos on regards on how to do that. You probably see down my timeline how to make a detox tea, I think it is. So, what I do is the herbs that I use are specifically designed to get every part, like your lymphatic system, your kidneys, your spleen, your gallbladder, and your liver, get your digestion going, get everything going appropriately, and then you supplement that with activated charcoal in regards to pulling out some of those toxins. Activated charcoal doesn't necessarily break the blood-brain barrier, but the stuff, if you're using your posture right and everything, the stuff isn't going up to you. It's not getting up to your brain to accumulate there in the first place. So that's just my method of doing it, and everybody has their own way of doing that. And I don't necessarily, I'm not going to disagree with anybody's method. Your method is your method, and you run with that if that's what works best for you. Um, One of my commenters here on TikTok says that they have started drinking distilled water. Distilled water is okay, but the downside to distilled water is it's literally nothing but hydrogen and oxygen, and there's no minerals to it at all. So you're not necessarily hydrating yourself if you're drinking pure distilled water. Now, what you can do as a means to supplement your water is you can supplement your water by adding particular minerals and slightly alkalizing it. Now, I know that Barbara, I can't remember her last name. She's a really good doctor, um, Dr. Barbara. She recommends Celtic sea salt. So just a little bit of Celtic sea salt. If you're going to do distilled water, a little bit of Celtic sea salt in your water, especially if you're using distilled water, will help alkalize your water. It's going to add minerals to your water, and it'll make your water more bioavailable. You're less likely to bloat by drinking water that's slightly alkalized. So you'd have to go down my timeline and look. I don't have time to go over that tonight. So Dr. Barbara O'Neill. Yes, indeed. Dr. Barbara O'Neill. Yeah, she's pretty amazing. She's a pretty smart cookie, and that's why they hate her so much. But she gets lots of love, right? People share her stuff all the time, but she's brilliant. She's a really smart lady. Okay, so there's different types of herbs that we can use. Oh, environmental issues, environmental toxins are also relevant. So you do your detox. Um, well, she's not a doctor anymore. They took her life. She was Australian. From what I understand, she was an Australian doctor, and they took her license to practice. So, but I think she is. I think she was a doctor. They took her license to practice because she's okay with not using big pharma to heal people. Because it's awful, awful of her to do such a thing. Big pharma is awful. You're not wrong. Okay, so I like one of the that I talked about beetroot, right? So beetroot is one of my favorites because it doesn't necessarily add more oxygen to your body, but it allows for more or a better oxygen uptake in your body. It makes the oxygen that's already in your body more bioavailable. It also affects the nitric oxide levels in your body. So when you're working out, you kind of need to have the nitrous oxide. The downside to it is when it builds up in your body too much, it has an adverse impact on your body. So what the beetroot does is it adversely affect or it affects the nitric oxide levels of your body enough that it doesn't overpower what you're trying to accomplish. So they've done studies on this in regards to like professional bicyclists and other professional athletes in Europe who swear by it. They will drink beetroot juice and beetroot supplements before a game because it's shown to actually improve it improves their stamina and it improves their endurance. So they're actually able to last longer and they're at a higher level. So, I mean, you can last longer but still kind of wear yourself out, but they're able to perform at a higher level for a longer period of time. And so people that are like in MMA would be better served to be drinking like beetroot supplements, like do a beetroot bee pollen type of mix. Maybe add some nutritional yeast into that, and that would goji berries. All of those are like superfoods. Acai. If you were to blend all those together, that would add enough nutrients to your body. It would help improve cognitive function, but it would also improve overall health. So physical decline or physical inactivity is also a good way to um, exacerbate uh, cognitive decline. Because if you're not active, right, if you're just sitting all the time, especially if you're just sitting on your phone all the time, A, you've got the posture thing, right? Because you're on your phone, you're looking down, but B, you're not moving, so your blood isn't flowing, your body is just moving at the most basic levels, and it's doing the most basic things that it needs to do simply just to function. And especially if you're the kind of person that doesn't eat right, you don't exercise, and all you do is sit. It's going to lead to not only cognitive decline, but you'll have emotional issues as well. So you'll have people that have depression and anxiety, and they get all these other types of whatever whatever mental illnesses they have nowadays. Um, that that are specifically led to their lifestyle, right? They don't have good posture, they don't do anything, they don't eat the right foods, and then they wonder why their bodies don't want to work right. It's very frustrating. So so physical activity is also very relevant, and I found that for myself, martial arts is probably the best way for me to be physically active. I love martial arts. It's full body exercise, especially like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. These are the types of things that get good cardio, but that's not what you necessarily need to do. You could simply just walk, and if you're injured, right, or in such a way that you can't walk, there are other exercises that you can do. There are things that you can do and that would still improve your physical performance, which would also help improve your cognitive function. So, if you're paraplegic or if you're injured or if you have, different types of neuralgia or neuropathy or different conditions such as that, um, you can you can do physical activity still. You're still able to do it. It's just whether or not you want to. I mean, are you willing to push past whatever discomfort you're going to have to do or whatever discomfort you're going to have to go through in order to be able to improve your body function? Now, there's a guy, he's a former wrestler, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page was his name. I wasn't, like a real big fan of his back in the day, but he, I mean, he came from a long way. He now has a program that's specifically designed. It's a yoga program it's kind of his own take on yoga, but he gets people that can't walk or can't function or can't do things, and he helps them anyway. He's gotten people that are bedridden out of the bed and running, and I mean, and granted, these are like exceptional cases, but these are people that didn't want to be sick anymore, right? So he helped them find the proper path to not be sick anymore, right? And they did it physically. They changed their diet, they changed their entire lifestyle. And these are the types of things that are going to help improve your overall function, including cognitive function. If your body goes first, your brain's soon to follow, right? And don't get me wrong, sometimes your brain will go first too, but typically speaking, it's your body that's going to go first. Tai Chi is good, chair yoga, right? I mean, somebody says that Barbara O'Neill recommends rebounding slash trampolines because it affects the whole body. Yeah, that's another way to do it. Granted, to be fair, mixed martial arts is a good way to damage your body too. I did lose an ACL due to mixed martial arts, so. So, okay, so that's one of the foods that I was discussing was beetroot. I didn't want to get too far off topic, but I want to get it out of there so it doesn't get distracting. So here's some of the herbs that you can start with that will help with improving cognitive function. Now, one of my favorite herb of all time for brain health, I mean specifically for brain health, is ginkgo biloba, Ginkgo biloba. It's a tree. It was native to like Eurasia area, but now you can grow it anywhere. If you go to Washington D.C., they're all over in Washington D.C. They're found just about anywhere. You can probably go to your local nursery and be able to find them. Each one will live about 1,000 years. Each tree will live a long time if it has the right conditions. They'll get about 60 feet tall, but the medicine is in the trees, is in the leaves. Now this is like the oldest tree species still alive in the world. It's like 270 million years, literally older than the dinosaurs. I just discussed this last night. Um, it's older than the dinosaurs, which means, I mean, from my perspective, I look at things kind of weird because I'm kind of a nerd, but um, I look at it from this perspective. The dinosaurs would have eaten this plant. There were six different versions of ginkgo that they had back in those times, according to the fossil record. And this is the only one that survived. Now, the dinosaurs would have eaten these plants, and I'm going to assume that the chemical constituents from that plant would have stayed the same consistently. So the animals that ate it would have received the benefits of that particular plant, and they outlasted the dinosaurs. They lived much longer. So ginkgo's good. Now you got to be careful with ginkgo. Watch my arthritis video. I just did the arthritis video. I just did. And we're not talking about arthritis tonight. So here's what ginkgo does. Ginkgo has a lot of different types of properties. Ginkgo is a vasodilator. So if you're having issues with blood flow in general, it makes the lining of, or it actually increases the diameter of the blood vessels. Now this works not just on the arteries and the veins, but it goes down to the blood vessels and the capillaries as well. So it improves overall blood flow. Now this has compounds in it that are known to break the blood-brain barrier, right? So you have this barrier that's inherently in your brain that prevents compounds from going up into your brain. At least it's supposed to. It doesn't always prevent everything, obviously. But this is one of the leading reasons why they have such a hard time treating brain cancer, because the chemicals that they want to use to treat the brain cancer, the brain actually doesn't let those chemicals into the brain in order to treat the condition. So this is one of those herbs. Now I say one of the few herbs, and compared to the tens of thousands of herbs that are out there, it is one of the few herbs that easily breaks through the blood-brain barrier. Now, ginkgo is known to do, it does it so well, in fact, that even the FDA has been forced to acknowledge that it does this. And they use it in every other part of the world, by the way, for these types of conditions. But what it does is it improves brain or blood flow to your brain, but it also helps to improve the cognitive function because it acts as an antioxidant. So it has some binding agents or binding compounds in them. So as it's going into your brain, it's also helping to remove the stuff from your brain as it goes back out. Now, it will also carry some other compounds with it. So if you have ginkgo and you're taking something else, it can carry some of those compounds with it that wouldn't maybe necessarily get through the blood-brain barrier by themselves. So ginkgo has the ability to um, so what it's able to, I was looking over here so I can get that, because somebody discussed narcolepsy and then somebody else discussed vertigo and tinnitus. Now, it not only improves the blood flow to like just the brain, but it affects like the whole head. So they've used it to help treat tinnitus. They've used it to help treat glaucoma because it widens or it dilates the blood vessels even in the eye, which will allow for better blood flow, and stopping that pressure from building up in the your optic nerve. So, I mean, they use it in other parts of the world. It's actually prescribed as a medication. So, it does improve blood flow, but it has anti-inflammatory properties. So, oftentimes when you get issues like vertigo or when you get issues like forgetfulness, it's due to an inflammatory issue that's in your brain. So if things are okay, so imagine if something's swollen up, the things around it are less likely to be able to get through because that one thing is swollen up. So this will help remove that swelling that's in those areas to allow for better flowing, not just of blood flow, but different types of fluids and the other types of functions that go on in your body. Um, yes, ginkgo is good for vertigo. Actually, it is a medication prescribed called beta histine. Beta histine is an anti-vertigo medication commonly prescribed for balance disorders or to alleviate vertigo. That's what that's one of those herbs I need to add as herbs that are currently medication. So they've taken a ginkgo extract of sorts and they've turned it into another medication. BETA, beta histine, HISTINE. That's how you spell that. But you'd be better off just using. You're better off just using. I'm not saying you're. No, I'm not even going to say that. I can say that it's often found that when you use an actual herb, the synergy of the herb works better than some of the medications. And just to clear. Some of the compounds from ginkgo. I have to tell you how it's actually broke down. I can't recommend anything. I can't say that ginkgo biloba is shown in trials to work for it. Maybe at some point I'll do a video on it. I don't know. It depends on how much time I have. Which at this point, if I'm doing all these apothecary kits, I won't have a lot of time. Now ginkgo's also been shown to help with narcolepsy. It has antioxidant effects and improves the circulation to the brain. And well, that's my thought on it. So maybe if you were to use ginkgo biloba in conjunction with beetroot. But obviously, if you're on medication, you want to talk to your doctor first to make sure that the medication you take isn't going to counterindicate with whatever you're taking. So you're going to counterindicate with the ginkgo biloba. Gotta get me some ginkgo. So you got to also remember that everything in moderation. So if you're gonna use ginkgo, you don't want to use a lot of it. Now here's one of the things that ginkgo has the ability to do is it makes your blood less sticky. It doesn't necessarily thin your blood, right? But it doesn't make it. It makes it so it's not as sticky. So it's not as likely to. It's still gonna clot, right? It's just not gonna. It's hard to explain on a molecular level, but it's just think of it. It's kind of makes your blood more Teflon-like. Less likely to stick to things, so it won't stick to it won't stick to other clogs or it won't stick to things that cause flow issues, right? Also because it's a vasodilator. But they have said that you have to be somewhat careful if you're using ginkgo biloba, if you're taking warfarin or other types of blood thinners. Do your research first. It's not necessarily a blood thinner, but it has similar types of properties to be a blood thinner. So it's like close to being that. Doesn't It doesn't prevent coagulation, no. One of my questions here on TikTok was, does it prevent coagulation? It does not prevent coagulation. It just makes the blood. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it just makes the blood less sticky. It does something to the blood cells that makes them so they're not quite as gummy. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but you can look it up and you'll understand. Take Xarelto. I'm not sure a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs, because I'm not a doctor and I don't research that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll look and see what herbs are taken for, or what chemicals are taken for specific thing. Right. Now, another good herb that helps with cognitive function is Gotu kola. Now, that's typically a Chinese herb. It's traditional Chinese medicine. Um, it does how Go-To Cola works is it tends to balance the chemicals in your brain. So your brain produces tons of different types of chemicals, like hundreds of different kinds of chemicals. You know, it does your feel-good chemicals. It does the other types of chemicals, which are your hormones that tell your bodies to do certain things. And Go-To Cola is another one of those herbs, and it's often used in conjunction with ginkgo biloba. But you use the Go-To Cola in regards to to balance out the way the chemicals are produced in your brain. And it also helps to clean out the neurotransmitters to allow for better adhesion and for better movement of the signals that are going through your brain. So they're both often used roughly at the same time. Um, Go-To Cola, yeah. That's it, Sarah. That's how you spell that. Gotukola. It's another one of those herbs. It does boost circulation, right? So you have to be somewhat careful when you're taking too many herbs, or you take a lot of herbs that are going to be vasodilators. You don't really want them. You don't want them to be stretched too thin. Now, you take an herb. If you supplement that with an herb like hawthorn will actually strengthen the blood vessels as well. So even though they dilate, it won't weaken the walls of the. Now ginkgo's not going to weaken the walls of it, right? And neither is Gotu Kola, but you just don't want them to be too wide all the time because eventually they will thin out. Especially the older you get, the harder it is for your telomeres to, because your telomeres they go a little bit shorter every time. That means the things in your body don't necessarily replenish at the same rate or the same way. Um, we'll talk about Parkinson's here in just a second. Now, ginkgo is shown to help with Parkinson's, and there's a if you go on YouTube here, especially if you're here on YouTube, if you go on YouTube, I'm doing YouTube over here. There's a chiropractor who does people with Parkinson's, and they've noticed that posture is really relevant. Your food, the types of food that you eat, is really relevant. And there's a chiropractor who works specifically with Parkinson's patients, and he gets people that are severe to be less so, by not only fixing their posture, but by aligning certain things. Because if things aren't flowing right, things are going to build up in the wrong spots, and then you're going to have problems. Ginkgo. I'm not recommending anything now, but um, in other parts of the world, it's used for that. So Gotu Kola also it has what's called neuroprotective properties. It's a neuroprotectant. It will actually prevent oxidative damage, and it will help prevent things like the zinc from building up in your brain. Now again, your posture is relevant. So if you're not getting that straight, it's got to be straight, right? Because the back of our neck is supposed to be straight. So if we're not straight, if you're this way, if you're like this all the time, see, I've made like a U, still kind of a U. You're not getting all the proper flow that you need in order to get that in. And it's not the flow in that's the problem, it's the flow out that's the problem. So you help your posture if you go see a chiropractor. Um, I'm not recommending you didn't do that, but I mean, there is a just do a search on YouTube, chiropractor for Parkinson's, and it showed a lot of help. Um, One of the other herbs that a friend of mine who is a moringa farmer from them farms, I think he's here on YouTube. I know for certain he is here on TikTok, though I don't know if he's watching on either one of these tonight. He'll probably go back and watch it, but it's somewhat of a hormone regulator. So moringa is a really good herb, right? It's what most people would consider an adaptogen. Now, allopathic medicine doesn't necessarily have a definition for the word adaptogen, but what an adaptogen does is it gets your body to function the way it's supposed to function, right? It makes your body function in a proper way. Certain adaptogens will do different things in a different way for your body. For instance, if you take eleuthero root, right? Eleuthero root is known to help sturdy your body. It makes your body better prepared for stress. It makes your body better prepared for traumas. It helps to replenish your body faster. It's almost an anti-aging herb by itself. So another herb, chase tree. I don't want to say chase tree. It's not chase tree. There's another herb that is used very very similarly with with the Luther root that the Russian people used during World War II that they gave their Schisandra berry. They do the same thing. They're adaptogens and they adapt your body. Well, what moringa does is it does that for your brain, right? So it's more of an adaptogen specifically for brain function. It's known to help improve your brain overall health. It's known to help improve your brain overall working. Now, this is in conjunction with all your other stuff, right? You can't just pill your way out of this, right? So you can't just take these herbs and hope for the best. You're going to have to, it's an amalgamation of everything. It's a complete lifestyle change, right? Because your lifestyle is what led to this decline to begin with, whether it's your job, whether it's what you know, all the fun you do, all the things you take, all the things, whatever it was a lifetime of those decisions that typically led to that. Now, granted, you don't have any control over environmental issues, not really, and most people can't afford to move, you know, and I understand that. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but it is up to you to be able to fix it. So, you know, at some point you have to take the steps yourself to be able to fix these things, and it's not going to be just taking a bunch of tinctures and hoping for the best. It's going to take some real work on your part as well. I'm not talking about Scientology. That's a good way to get this thing banned. Um, Moringa also has specific herbs, so or not herbs, but it has it's really high in zinc. It's high in other types of key nutrients that are really good for your body. Now the downside to it is if your posture sucks, right, all of that zinc is what's going to help build up in your brain. So even and Moringa does break the blood-brain barrier, but um, you have to be careful with it, right? You don't want to take too much of it. Everything in moderation, and you know you don't want to make sure you want to make sure that if you're going to be taking that much and have that much with zinc in it, that the other stuff that you take doesn't have a lot of zinc in it too, because you know, I mean, the zinc isn't necessarily will accumulate in certain parts of your body, and that's something that you kind of want to not maybe not necessarily limit your intake of, but you want to make sure that the zinc you're taking is natural and bioavailable, and that you're not taking too much of it because it will build up, especially in your brain, and that's what's going to cause problems later. Um, it's it's known to help with brain fog. So if you get confused a lot, or if you lose your train of thought, or if you're just you know, or whatever it is, you can't wake up in the morning. This is a stimulant, so this would also help with like narcolepsy. Um, People with narcolepsy, they do suffer from you know the inability to have a stimulant in their brain. So, you know, using this in conjunction with the other two herbs, ginkgo and gotu. So this that wouldn't necessarily be a bad blend. So you go ginkgo, gotu, moringa as a blend, but you wouldn't need to take it all day, every day, right? Once or twice a day, depending on what your issue is, on top of the other stuff that you're doing. I'm not recommending that as in any way, but I'm just saying that, you know, according to the science, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad blend to at least look into and research. um, it's also known to be like a hormone balancer, so it'll stimulate better production of hormones. Now, um, your hypothalamus really controls almost all your hormone production in your body. So if you know your hypothalamus is in your brain and it's starting to get overwhelmed, that oftentimes that's what leads to other issues. Typically speaking, when people have thyroid issue, my first thought in my head is what's wrong with your hypothalamus, you know, because typically speaking, if the hypothalamus is wrong, that's where everything else is going to go. Your lymph nodes, your you know your testes, your ovaries, all of it. It's all going to be um, it adversely affected. So moringa helps to balance those types of things out. So it doesn't have hormones of its own per se, but it does help you balance yours. So that's where it works as an adaptogen, making your body do what it's supposed to do naturally by itself. The same thing is controlled by the hypothalamus. Typically speaking, I've talked to a lot of doctors. Oh, okay, so about seven. Um, and I've hypothesized what if this is an issue. Oftentimes, if you fix your hypothalamus, you're going to fix a lot of the issues in your body. But typically speaking, if you detox, fix your digestion, and then fix your diet, you'll fix a lot of chronic illness too. It really is just typically a lifestyle change. Um, so now we're going to delve into the realm of natural healing and herbal medicine that I'm not as I know about them, right? But I'm not a mushroom guy. That would be Paul Stamets. That's the mushroom guy. If you really want to know about mushrooms, that guy can tell you everything about all of them. Probably not, but he can tell you more than most people in the world. He's really knowledgeable. But there are certain fungi that are that can be taken that are found all over locally that can be easily bought. You can buy them as extracts. I don't know the best way to use them. To be fair, most of the time it's usually capsules or extracts. I'm a big fan of extracts, so I'm going to assume that the alcohol extracts are going to work fairly well. But there's going to be some phenolic compounds that are going to be in the mushrooms by themselves that are only going to be available if you eat them. So I mean that's just my perspective on it. I don't know. Maybe I overthink it a little bit. We'll go. But lion's one of the first ones that I obviously most people think about is the lion's mane. So that looks like a big fluffy sponge, big fluffy white sponge. It's typically found on rotting trees, but most of them are. Um, lion's mane is known to help not just people that are already healthy, think clearly and stay clear, but it's also shown in clinical trials to help people that have suffered with Alzheimer's, have suffered with dementia, and other types of neurological conditions to improve those types of functions. Now, it works on a biomolecular level in that it actually helps to improve the connections of the synapses and the connections of the nerve endings in your brain. Like it stimulates that type of growth. I really want to say, but it stimulates that particular process, and it's shown in clinical trials, both in animal trials and in human trials. It's just known across the board. Now, there's some people like the Joe Rogan does the Alpha Brain, and they swear by it. And there's a lot of people that have taken the Alpha Brain and have discovered that their mental well-being has improved overall. Now, I haven't seen all the ingredients for Alpha Brain, but from everything I've heard about it, lion's mane is one of them, cordyceps, and I do believe reishi are all in there. They're all in there in a specific blend, and they're specific for helping to improve cognitive function. Now, I have a couple of companies that gave me samples that I have yet to try in regards to improving cognitive function. Now, I've been considering maybe you guys would give me an idea of what you think of it. Should I try them and um, see whether or not they work and give you guys a review on whether or not it works? I could do that. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. Um, Another really good herb that seems to help with producing or increasing cognitive function would be Bacopa monnieri. It doesn't have a common name. That is its name, and this is a really good adaptogen as well. This is not just like a mental herb, but this is like a full body herb. This literally affects your body on every level. It acts similar to a Eleuthero root, but it doesn't necessarily make your body tougher like a Eleuthero root does. But it makes your body more flexible. I don't really. It's kind of hard to find the right analogy. So if Eleuthero makes you tougher and Schisandra makes you tougher, um, the Bacopa monnieri makes your body more supple, makes your body more likely to adapt to new situations, right? Without causing too much undue stress. Bacopa, Bacopa, monnieri. Monnieri. I usually have a hard time with that. It's usually two N's or two I's. I think I might even have some of that. No, I have Tribulus terrestris. That's what I have. I have Tribulus terrestris. Um, I've been live for 90 minutes. Somebody want to spell that? Can somebody spell that? You can do a search Bacopa and I'll fill in the rest for you. Google will, I promise. Anyway, so it's another one of those types of herbs that it has an impact on your body on a molecular level, right? It'll help with your body to, especially from injuries, it helps your body to replenish and overall brain function. I'm not sure exactly, I haven't seen the actual science of where it works on a molecular level, but I do know that it's shown in clinical trials to help improve those types of functions, even with people that are currently suffering from up to moderate Alzheimer's, dementia type issues. Thank you, Nini. Somebody spelled it for me again. um, so anyway, lion's mane it's found fairly commonly. I'm looking here online. They're kind of expensive. I mean, the supplement's kind of expensive. You'd be better served buying it in bulk. So, um, yeah, Frontier Natural Products, Star West Botanicals, uh, Herbco, HERBCO, which is bulksupplements.com might have them. Holistic Herbal Solution. You just do a search, and you can get some really good. And not all of them are going to carry lion's mane either. So just be sure that not all of them are going to necessarily going to be available on all of those websites. So Mountain Rose is another good herb supplier. Any of those you can buy it in bulk, get a pound of it. You get a pound of it, you can freeze it, and use like a half a pound to make a tincture or whatever. Freeze the other half pound until you're ready to use it again. Says in a clinical trial, there was a clinical trial that they used it for older people that were suffering from dementia. Trying to see where it was from, where it was published. It's considered a nootropic. Animal studies support brain health. I'm trying to find it where it's at, the actual study. There it is. There's one of them. So what the lion's mane will help with the creation of new neurons. I'm trying to open the study right now. It takes a minute sometimes. There it is. All right. What number was that? Hold on. Number 6. I'm pulling up the actual study so we can go over the study. I know you thought I had this ready. What it has is a compound called erinacine, and what it does is it was a 30-day trial that they did. Results highlight the therapeutic potential on Alzheimer's disease. The number of plaque-activated microglia and astrocytes in cerebral cortex and hippocampus were diminished. The ratio of nerve growth factor to nerve growth precursor was increased, and hippocampal neurogenesis was promoted after these administrations. That's really long-winded way of saying that what it did was it actually there's a nerve growth factor in your brain, which helps with like getting things replenished, right? Because your body redoes this every few years. That helps that process. It helps improve the process. That was lion's mane, by the way. And they did dozens and dozens of studies. That was just one that I've opened. They did a double-blind placebo-controlled. It was a mild cognitive impairment. What they found was after 16 weeks, that showed significant increased scores in the cognitive function scale compared with the placebo group. They did different types of mental testing. The Yoba Ushitaki group scores increased with the duration of intake, but week 4 after the termination of the 6-week intake, the scores decreased significantly. So it worked as long as they were taking it. And when they stopped taking it, it stopped working. So it's one of those kind that you really have. It's one of those that you probably should take daily. I haven't seen any studies. Now I have read a little bit about it. I've never seen a single study that says you shouldn't take it daily. So maybe at some point I'll do a video about lion's mane and break it down a little bit more, and then give you a more comprehensive talk specifically about lion's mane. But in this particular instance, if it's taken, it works to help improve and increase brain function and actual synapse creation. Reishi mushrooms are also really good. They help protect they help to protect the neurons, and they improve blood flow to the brain. They have a compound called ganoderic acid. Hold on, I'll get that here. Ganoderic acid. That's one of those, another kind that that gets into the brain, blood-brain barrier. Um, I'm breaking up the actual cancer. So the biological activities, they have anti-cancer, anti-diabetic, antiviral, hepatoprotective, which means they protect your liver, anti-platelet, so they will prevent some blood clotting, antioxidant, hypocholesterolemia, so they're good to help remove your cholesterol in the blood, and histamine effects. But they also seem to bind to the synapses in your brain to improve cognitive function. So I'm not a big mushroom eater. That's probably why I don't know a lot about mushrooms. I don't like to eat mushrooms. I don't like them in my pizza. I don't like them in my food. I don't like them raw or fried or sauteed or as a burger. I just don't like them. Um, it's probably one of the reasons why I haven't really studied a lot too much about them. Lion's mane is really good. I'm doing good. So ganoderic acid is one of the main compounds in it, and if you look up ganoderic acid, GANODERIC, um, that's where most of the studies have done, I'm be willing to bet that Big Pharma is looking for a way to synthesize ganoderic acid so they can sell it as a pharmaceutical and make more money on it. But so all of these, in reality, all these things that I've discussed, you could probably put into a single tincture, and they would all work in conjunction with each other rather than working against each other because they all work a little bit differently in the brain in order to get things to function a little bit more properly. Um, what they've found is another herb is cordyceps. This is CORDYCEPS. Cordyceps mushrooms. Most of the studies that have been done on cordyceps have been done specifically on the mental capacity, and what they've known is um, it helps to remove the oxidation that's in your brain. Now, again, posture is relevant, and the food you eat are relevant, but this will help to bind to the toxins that build up in your brain over time, and will help remove them out as long as there's not too much of a buildup, right? So that if there is a big buildup, it's going to take them a little bit more time to get everything back out of there. So it's specifically, a lot of those are specifically age related. So the age related part of that, from the cordyceps is, so the older you get, this will kind of help replenish the fact that your body is slowing down a little bit and that it needs a little bit of help. um, what they found in the studies, it's improved memory and executive function in elderly adults. So, but again, use it or lose it. So if these people would also do things that would help stimulate them mentally, that would also help to improve mental function, cognitive function. Increases blood flow to the brain, increases oxygen supply to the brain, and it supports the growth of new neurons. That would be this one here. Opening the study. I know. Should have already done it. It's been a long day, what can I say? There it is. Trying to see if there's any questions. I'm not a big fan of Big Pharma either. It says cordyceps are also known for their anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting properties. In one study, cordyceps supplements were found to reduce inflammation in people with arthritis. In another study with elderly adults who took cordyceps for 16 weeks showed significant improvements in memory and executive function. It's an immune booster, so it is not an immunostimulant. So this is something that if you have an autoimmune disorder, you really want to check to make sure that this is the herb you want to take. Oftentimes if you have an autoimmune disease, you don't want an immune booster. That's the last thing you want is an immune booster if you have an autoimmune disease of some kind. So, trying to look and see where the other studies are. Those are some of the things that you can take to help improve overall brain function. Exercise, your diet. To be fair, if you fix the first three things or the four things, so if you detox your body, if you fix your digestion, if you fix your diet, and then you start exercising, a lot, and of course you fix your posture, a lot of problems can seem to go away. I'm not saying that they will. I'm not guaranteeing that that's going to happen, but I can say that they have the potential to go away a lot faster. So I could probably come up with some sort of recipe. You'd have to let me know in the comments whether you want something like that. But I could probably come up with some sort of recipe that would increase brain function and then put the science behind it and point out why I use each particular compound. So this particular live has been for an hour on YouTube, by the way. So I'm only talking YouTube. So I appreciate you guys who watched this long. If you have any questions or anything, let me know in the comments and I'll get back as soon as I possibly can.